Hello everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the Indie Diarist podcast, showing the human stories behind indie game development. This is your loyal Indie Diarist and host, Anthony L. Wolf, and I would like to apologize in advance because the audio from on my end for this episode was a little bit weird. I don't know what happened there, but basically too much gain. I have no idea, but I've tried to fix it as much as possible, but it might be a little bit cracking in places, and I'm sorry about that. Before we go into the episode, I want to shout out to my amazing Patreons, Feinoko, Zugini, Fiveamp Dev, and Peleg. You guys are incredible, and I love having your support every single month. If you two listeners want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/theindiediarist and check out my tiers, which start from as little as £1.25 per month. That is not much, maybe to some of you, but to me, every little thing counts. So please head over to patreon.com to see what kind of benefits you can get, including bonus episodes and access to an archive of video, uncut versions of each episode of the Indie Diarist. But now, without further ado, let's get into Indie Diary number 49 with Kevin Messenhimer. Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the Indie Diarist podcast, showing the human stories behind indie game development. This is Anthony L. Wolf, as you know, and as you have heard from the intro. And today I've got someone from the indie game development community, as usual, and his name is Kevin. He's the founder of Studio Fiveamp, and I believe you guys are just a very small studio. If I remember right, it started out with 2 developers, and now you're at 7 people. But I don't want to say too much about it. I'm going to let you speak. So, Kevin, please tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, what you do, where you're based, and what you're working on right now.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Anthony, and thank you for having me. For me, I'm based out of Austin, Texas, and it all started out... It all started off where it was just me and my friend. Well, before I kind of get there, we're 7 people big. We've been doing this since 2014, so it's been a while, and we've gone through a lot. And to make it where we're here right now, it's definitely like a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, as a lot of other indies go through it. But we're very fortunate to be here. But yeah, like it's been a journey, and we're still remote. So just having that growth to the 7 people has been a huge accomplishment. But we have our dreams to reach, our like ultimate dreams, like all indie devs do. So we just got to keep at it.
Yeah, of course. And you got in touch with me to get featured on the show, and you mentioned that you've listened to a few episodes before this, so you know what I'm going to ask you next. I always like to open these episodes with a little icebreaker. So, if you could be any game's character for a day, who would you be and why?
A game's character. Yeah, that one is. I never actually had thought about that one specifically. I always go to, I mean, even like when I was a kid, like playing Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Kong Quest, like just being able to control Diddy Kong, like to me, I'm just like thinking like, wow, I could do cartwheels off the edge. I have like unlimited control. This feels great, like no rules.
Perfect. Yeah, no, that's a good one. Nobody ever said Diddy Kong, so yeah, it's a good one to mention there. Well, yeah, I mean, I always like to start these episodes from the beginning, and so I want to know a little bit more about the beginning of your story. Like when you think about your childhood, like what is the earliest or fondest memory that has to do with video games that you have?
Yeah, I think with that one, like I used to play all the time when I was little, and my parents, they were always telling me like, hey, you need to be serious about your career. You can't, I was like, I want to make video games. It's like, no, Kevin, you can't do this. This isn't sustainable. Do engineering, be a doctor or something like that. And
yeah, well, as parents do.
Yeah, but it was just something that I was always passionate about, whether it was like even in basketball. And I get it, basketball is a little bit different because, you need some physical requirements, or you might get some advantages if you're taller than everybody else. But with video games, I've just always like played them. I had no idea, even going into college, that I would be making games like 20 years later.
Yeah, no, that's always a surprise for a lot of people, and actually a lot of people just happen to become game developers by chance. Maybe they stumble upon something and Yeah. So, well, you already mentioned Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong, but what other games do you remember playing growing up? And most importantly, do you think they're influencing what you're doing right now?
I believe, yeah, with that one, I remember my parents had like an old Windows Millennium Edition computer, and I would just kind
Hmm.
of play games on it, like from Tony Hawk Pro Skater, even to like Super Nintendo. But part of that is that just looking at how these games are made and just everything that's like in them, like from all the ideas, from the
Hmm.
design, from the presentation, that's just always been awe inspiring. Especially like you just play Metal Slug, then you play Tony Hawk
Uh-huh.
Pro Skater, two totally different games, but like totally different ideas, and just you get experiences just from playing them. Roller Coaster Tycoon too. That was a big time sink into that one, but
Or
it's
because
just
Tycoon.
yeah, and all of these just ideas, it's like very inspiring. Like
Hmm.
that's why I appreciated them.
Hmm. And well, I mean, you mentioned that pretty early on you were telling your parents, "Oh, I want to make games." So this happened pretty quickly. Do you remember when you realized that you wanted to make games for a living, or when you became serious about it? And was it some sort of aha moment for you?
Right. So there's this small game online. It was called Little Fighter 2, and
Uh huh.
I had a computer during my summers. It was in high school. I had my summers free, and I would download this game and play. It was kind of like kind of like a beat 'em up 2D type of fighting game. But the thing is that it was executable to install, and you have access to all the game files.
Uh-huh.
So over the summer, I had all the time in the world. I would go in the game files and try to like tweak some pixels and be like, "Oh, cool!
Right.
I changed this guy's suit from red to yellow. Like this is cool." So just
Right.
slowly
Okay.
like dipping my toes into that and just like figuring out, okay, I'm starting to become more familiar about like how a game is put together.
Basically, we're playing around with mods, but
Yeah.
in an early stage, and that's how you found out. Yeah, no, that's really interesting. Okay. I wonder how many people out there will have learned about game development that way, just tinkering with game files, especially early on. Now it's pretty much impossible. I mean, you everything is encrypted or everything is just hidden
Mm.
away, so compiled. Um, but yeah. Um, well, and in these years, and also, when did you start studying or become first of all, I don't know if you went to university and studied actually for software game development or programming in general, but was that the case?
Oh, so that one I actually did follow with what my parents were pushing me for. So I did go
Hmm.
to University of
Okay.
Texas San Antonio, and I majored in electrical engineering. So I
Okay. Okay.
completed a degree from that, and then immediately right after that, joined corporate. Like,
Hmm.
and that one I felt like it was there was a lot of good people there, but I feel like the whole corporate structure. There's some days where I would wake up and I would just like look at my ceiling and then just
Oh,
have that
yeah.
feeling where you're like, I really don't want to go to work.
Yeah. Okay. I get it. Hmm.
It's the worst feeling ever. And I was like, man,
I've
I got
had
to get
I
stuff out.
honestly I had that, and I wouldn't wish it upon anybody. At the same time, I know that everyone will live through that at least once in their lives, but it does help you understand what you want or what you don't want. And then I guess the difference is those is made by those people who actually listen to that inner feeling and they follow their dreams or something like that.
Right.
Would you say there's like in these years as a game developer, would you say there's been a particular development challenge that has left a mark on you? Something big or any big learning that you want to share with other devs?
I think with that one, I feel like overall with game development,
Hmm.
a lot of it is just like the grit and just having that, like keeping your head up and like kind
Hmm.
of seeing the ocean, but the same, like knowing where you want to go, but then, hitting that finish line, like doing
Hmm.
whatever it takes. That's been like one of the most important things that I've noticed because so many people come to me and they're like, "Hey, I have $1 million idea,"
All
and
right.
10 years later, now I'm all like thinking there is no such thing as $1 million idea without execution. All
Yeah.
I like, you gotta bet that any idea that you've come up with, at least three other people in the whole entire world have had some sort a similar idea. So like no idea is unique. It's all about the execution and how you deliver it.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. Makes total sense. So, well, that's sound advice, I think, for anyone getting into anything creative at any point. Just and I like the metaphor that you use, like for being in the ocean, and just knowing where you're going and seeing the finish line and just going for it. I think that's very important too. Well, at this point, I'm curious though. Like, what is the story behind Fiveamp? You mentioned that at least you mentioned in your email that you started out with 2 developers, and now you're at 7. So, how did the studio come to be?
Yeah, so during that phase when I was at corporate and not really liking my position in life, uh, my friend was also working at the same job, and what we were doing is that we got an apartment together, and we kind of got tired of just like, hey, it's the weekend, time to go out, hang out with friends, drink, repeat,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of got really old. Plus, our like the soul sucking feeling of being in corporate,
Yeah.
that we just talked to each other and we're like, hey, how about we make an app? We're like, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So we like would kind of just come up with ideas and just think about different things. We're like, oh, what about an app that I don't know that was like this, or how about we do something like this? And then we came across the idea of making like Cookie Clicker was really popular back then, and we're like, hey, how about we make like Cookie Clicker plus Minecraft, like a Minecraft
Mm-hmm.
type of inspired game, all about pickaxes. So we're like,
Okay.
okay, that sounds cool. So we would use our weekends and nights and just kind of prototype this. And we started off with a couple of different things. We started off with different non-Unity programs, and then we decided to just kind of settle on Unity. And we're like, okay, this sounds like it might be a little bit heavier for what we want to do, but let's go ahead and learn it. And so we watched YouTube, learn C sharp, like really learn C sharp, learn Unity, and then we created a prototype just over
Mm.
after like 6 months of just doing this cycle.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, the great thing. I don't know if you can hear that. Can you hear the
Yeah,
the siren?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's one of the downsides of being in the new house. There's a lot of sirens blaring past. I'll keep this in the final cut most likely. But but yeah. So what was I going to say? Oh yeah, the Unity and such. One of the things that a lot of developers say, and one of the main reasons behind all of this boom of indie games over the past 10 years or so, it's probably accessibility to these tools, like greater, easier accessibility to these tools. Like there's so many people out there, especially brackies, those tutorials, I'm sure. But
Yep.
not just them. There's so many people out there who made Unity tutorials for all those people who wanted to just make a game. And YouTube is full of that stuff, full of those resources. And that means that anybody who really wants to and has the discipline to learn game development can just do it if they have the time and they really want to go for it. So it's great that you guys found those resources, because without them, I mean, it would have taken you probably a lot of time and money to just learn Unity. Instead, you found some tutorials and learned C sharp, and it was relatively easy. It was easier, but not necessarily easy, I'm sure. But yeah, it's always a great thing about modern game development, I suppose. And
Yeah. But it's funny though, because of the fact that when we created this prototype and learned Unity, like we didn't do it like we did it to make a game, but we actually kind of did it because we wanted to get jobs at other places. So
all
we
right,
like
okay, okay.
we would apply to Microsoft. They would say no, like show us what else have you done. And we're like,
Mm-hmm.
dang, okay, how about we do this on the side? It'll be cool, but then we can show other companies that hey, we've learned new skills to get like better jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I applied to Gearbox, and my friend he applied to Facebook. He got the job at Facebook. They
Oh,
really
right.
liked the game prototype, and then I got an interview at Gearbox, and literally like majority of the questions were relating the game we were working on, which is Pickrafter, the prototype. Like only a couple questions were related to the corporate job, like oh
Mm-hmm.
hey how long have you been working there? But they were just asking me different questions. They're like oh well how did you do this in this game? We really like Cookie Clicker, and
Mm-hmm.
overall it was a really good back and forth. And but that landed me like a job at Gearbox, so that was the official like gateway into the games industry. Well, I guess
Nice.
technically we're already in the games industry by making our own game, but
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
official, yeah.
Yeah, no, I get that. Okay. And well, at this point, I guess we can move closer to the present then. And I'm actually curious to know about NIMRODS, which is your current project. I don't think we've had a chance to talk about it yet. So feel free to say a few things about NIMRODS. And then I'm curious to know what inspired the development of this game. But I'll let you speak.
Yeah. So with Nimrods is it's going to be our fifth title of the studio. So eventually, after we released our first game, we decided to kind of quit our jobs and go like full time on this, and we started to grow. And every game we released, we started on mobile, but every game has been a really good learning lesson. So we've learned a lot of like engineering skills, a lot of more coding skills, game design skills. So now it's our fifth title, and now we really want to kind of go back to our roots. Versus starting on mobile, we this is our first Steam first type of game. So Nimrods, we looked at the survivor like genre. The survivor like genre right now, it's really saturated. It is hype.
Mhm.
But what we wanted to do for a take on it is that we wanted to take this genre, add in gun crafting, as well as other like unique selling points of the genre. So really making it, giving it our own unique spin of the game. And with Nimrods, we plan on releasing later on this year. We've been working on the game for about a year and 8 months. It's right now we have it on Steam to wish list, and we have about like 50,000 wish lists. But it's one of those things where is this too little? Is this enough? We just got to keep pushing, keep trying to get the word out while we continue to work on the game for early access. So.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah. Well, it sounds like an exciting little project that you guys have. But I do agree that the survivors like niche right now is really saturated. A lot of people have seen the success of Vampire Survivors, and they're just trying to do their own thing there with a little roguelite and whatnot. So, but I'm sure Nimrods has something unique in itself. So yeah, that's great that you guys are on it and you are aware of the current market situation. That makes a big difference, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Now, of course, it isn't out yet, but and this is probably a question that would be better asked later. But if you could go back, is there anything you would change about the development of Nimrod so far?
I think with this one, there's definitely, I mean, a lot of things are hindsight, 2020, but
Mm-hmm.
one thing is that for these type of games, like just looking at it and from the way that a lot of the Unity tutorials teach you,
Yeah.
it's like, hey, you should code in this specific way.
Mm.
But these games, these survivor like games, which is just like you have to support thousands of bullets, thousands of enemies on screen at a time.
Mm.
And like the conventional coding ways, if you're not careful with that, like we saw like very like slowdowns immediately. And
Of
whenever I
course.
was showcasing the game at like GDC or other conventions, other people would walk up to me and they're like, "How did you get your game to run so fast?" I'm working on a survivor likes. Everybody's working on survivor likes,
Mm-hmm.
but they always run into the same performance issues. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking like, okay, we're starting to run into the same performance issues, but there's like a new technique that you can do in Unity, and we kind of learned that recently. But I felt like, okay, if we were to start back at square one, kind of use that new technology from the get go, which is Unity dots. So.
Mm. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, I imagine, and I imagine it is pretty heavy on any kind of machine to just have thousands of bullets on screen and thousands of game objects on screen. So yeah, that it's great that Unity supports that now. But there's something interesting that Simon Schuster, I think, one of my most recent guests, and the episode with Simon would have gone live like several weeks before this one when you guys are listening to this one, listeners. So just go and catch up if you want. But he mentioned that actually making a Vampire Survivors clone is a great exercise for anyone wanting to get into game development because you don't have to handle enemy. You don't have to handle shooting. You don't have to handle a lot of things. You can just have a sprite moving on screen with automated shooting. and just handle a little bit of AI, which is just enemies moving to you. So it's a great exercise to just, start designing your first few games and trying to see what you can actually do. So yeah, but would you say it is the case, or would you recommend something else?
Oh, 100% agree. I agree with that. And that's really how you learn, is that you
Mm,
just have to create a project, just see it, and then start iterating on it. So
mm,
100%, I think that's really good advice. And then part of that too is that I feel like a lot of the innovations that come in your mind, like while you're working on this type of game,
mhm.
maybe you think of a new idea that you want to iterate on your current prototype. So
Yeah.
then you get that practice of iteration, practice of innovation too. So
Mm.
100%, I think that's really good.
Yeah, and I guess when it comes, and this is something that I mean, you just lightly touched on right now, but if you're ever in a position where you're working on your current project and you feel like a little bit of a creative block, maybe move on to something smaller and just like maybe a Vampire Survivors clone. That might give you new ideas or might reignite the passion for your current project, because sometimes if you force yourself to work, it's creativity isn't just going to come to you. So yeah, that's one thing that I hear all the time. Um,
Yeah. So sometimes I play, like recently, I started playing the game Balatro, and
oh yeah, I've heard about that.
just seeing the polish in that game, I was like, wow, okay, I have all these new ideas regarding polish for our game. I was like, wow,
Hmm.
this is great. So yeah, sometimes taking a break and just even playing other indie games out there
Hmm.
really help.
Yeah, which a lot of game developers don't do. It's like, a writer who doesn't read or a musician who doesn't listen to music. It's just some. I know. I take it. I get it. It takes a lot of time to play any game these days. But yeah, it could be considered like research or study. I think it would still be useful for you to play games in your niche or even outside of your niche, just to see what else you could do. But yeah, definitely. And I guess now we're getting to the core of the episode, which is the question that I love to ask to anybody who comes into the show. And it is the real heart of the Indie Diaries, which is, why are you a game developer, Kevin? What is it that drives you forward? What is that thing that when you were playing Donkey Kong or Diddy Kong made you say, I want to make games?
Yeah, I believe it's shifted since then. Like when I was little, I wanted to make games because I was enjoying the worlds that I was playing. These
Mm,
experiences I had, they were cool. I want to make them for myself. But
mhm.
then now, like after we've gotten several games out, I see a lot of like the communities. I see a lot of people say like, "Oh my God, I played your first game, and this was the best game ever." Or I'm a disabled veteran, and this game really
Oh,
helps my anxiety. So like seeing
okay.
stories like that, I'm just like, "Wow, this is great." And some kind of making games for other people, like you don't want to make a game that's not fun for everybody, including yourself. Like, or even
Hmm.
if it is fun for yourself, like, hey, how does like regarding like money? It's like we're not in it to make millions. It's mainly like we're in it to make a game that is very fun and can
Hmm.
be enjoyed by a lot of people. Like I've got so many ideas of like, hey, this game idea would be great. This game would be idea would be great. But it's one of those like the discipline of like, okay, hold on, let's finish this one game first, then we could go to the next. So
Okay. So for you, it's a lot about the sense of community that game development brings, and in general, publishing a game brings, which makes sense. I think it's a very strong thing. Yeah, and it's actually maybe the first time someone, well, not the first time, the first time someone said that in these terms, because I've heard it in various ways before. But yeah, and of course, the opposite of that is what drives you backwards. Would you say? What is your biggest struggle as an indie developer?
I think with that one is that it's very saturated,
Mm,
and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just, I mean, it's very hard for marketing. Like so many people, so many other indie game devs I've talked to, a lot of them kind of believe that if you have a most perfect game, then you'll be fine. But like in terms of marketing or release, just release it, and it'll do fine. But after seeing that, like if you don't have that marketing bit to it, if you don't have that IGN feature, if you
mm,
haven't reached out to the press or found
yeah.
any influencers, like that's what's so tough is that just the exposure. I believe that everybody can come up with a unique idea that hasn't been done before. I still believe that that is a plenty, even though looking at the current landscape, you might get disinterested of like, okay, everything's been done before. These are so creative. I believe that there's still room, but that's one of the things where you look at it and you're like, man, but you just got to keep going. You just got to keep
I'm
going.
seeing an interesting thing lately, which has to do with this new coming up with new ideas. I mean, I suppose all the main genres have been explored already, and even some of the subgenres, and even some of the like mixed genres and meshes of genres. Because now you have all sorts of different types of genres that try to combine several things at once. Of course, there might be something weird and explored there, but I'm not sure what market there would be for it. What I'm seeing more and more lately is like there is this one thing about a game, this one element which is unique. It could be a gameplay mechanic. It could be the main mechanic of the gameplay loop. It could be anything. It could even be like the art style. But there's that one thing which acts as a hook, and that is what goes viral on social media. One example is a girl who's doing, I don't know if she's doing it alone, but she's doing a game that is completely where the art style is embroidered. So it's completely embroidered, handmade. And I think she scans those embroidered drawings, and it's animated like that. I think the backgrounds are not embroidered; those are probably like digital paintings. But the characters, they are embroidered, and that is like incredible. Or there's another now one of the first guests of the show, Lente, who's working on Spilled. Is a game about cleaning up oil spills with your little boat, and the hook there is, of course you've seen it, the hook is just, the art style is so cute, but the hook there is sustainability, the fact that you are using a boat to clean oil spills, and that already in itself is unique. So yeah, there's I think there's a way to go to still do something unique or still go viral on social media if you do something that is compelling, and if you do something that is very creative. It could be just that one thing, but it will be strong enough to entice people and make them want to play your game. So, yeah, I think you have a point there.
Yeah, and part of this too is just like getting the probably iterative feedback, because sometimes the ideas that you might come up with, like you've been working on it for like about a year, maybe it's
Mm,
not as attractive like in terms of like the visual style. Maybe you need to change it a little bit.
yeah.
But like I get it. If you're tunnel vision in and you're like, hey, this game is great, this game is great, like maybe like ask friends, ask feedback from other developers. A lot of people, they don't want to share their idea because they believe it's $1 million idea. It's like, no, go ahead and share it. The more people that know about it, the more
Yeah, but
feedback you
also, I mean, um, I always say, I mean, if you have an idea, and this is something that, like, as a creative, being a writer, um, when you're in the early stages and you're just approaching your creative works and such, I think it's natural to be protective of your own ideas. But over time, you kind of realize that those ideas came to you because it is you. Like no
get.
one else could make them work the way you do. My novel, for example, I mean, the premise for my novel isn't that unique, but at the same time, I know that nobody else would be able to write it the way I do because it is my own style. It is my own way of approaching that idea. So someone might steal your idea, but it will never be as good as yours, and it will never be as good as you working on it. So yeah, I
100%.
think
So
that's really important to know.
that's an important mindset right there, is that your vision is like that idea that you had, other people have had in the world, but your vision is only you. Yeah.
Exactly, your vision is what sets it apart. So yeah. Um, right. Well, I guess we are near the end now, and I can't believe how fast this has gone. But I have only two more questions for you, which are hopefully a bit fun. And one is, well, imagine writing a letter to yourself, but that because it's come up a few times. That kid that was playing Donkey Kong in your childhood, what would the letter say?
And that's a tough one. Maybe the letter would just be as simple of like, "Hey, remember to take a step back and enjoy the journey."
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I wouldn't want to spoil anything, because I believe that through life, like everybody's mistakes or hardships kind of make you who you are, and you
Mm-hmm.
learn from that. So
Yeah.
I do believe that even right now, like, and I've seen this happen for other indie game devs, it's important to take a step back, enjoy the journey. Like where we're
Mm-hmm.
at right now with 7 people big, Like it feels great. We're in a good spot, but I always like think that we should have been like, oh, I actually want us to be in this spot
Mm,
tomorrow when I know that it takes time and I need to enjoy the journey a bit more.
okay. Yeah. Perfect. But it's true. I mean, you're absolutely right there. It's sometimes we lose sight of the fact that to do something, it does take time. So yeah, it's important to keep that front of mind. And lastly, if you had unlimited budget and time, what game would you create?
Oh man, that one is a tough one. I've like we have this one Confluence doc in the company, and we just like use it as a big idea dump. And there's
Mm,
so many ideas. Uh, One game idea that I would make if I had unlimited time is that there's this game back in the day in like probably the 90s when I was a kid. I would play on my dad's computer, play the old DOS games, and
mm,
one of the games was called F Godmother, and it was a very simple, like a kind of 2D game. I could send it to you later, but it was like a puzzle one, but the core mechanic involved copying and pasting. So, like, let's say you had a brick in your way blocking your path. You could copy a ladder from your previous tile, paste it on the brick, and then you being able to go through it.
right.
Uh,
Okay. Okay.
and then that ladder would turn back to a brick after like 30 seconds or so.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been thinking of like, okay, well, making this type of core mechanic because I know prop hunt has been very popular,
Prop
but
hunt
now
has been
imagine,
popular. Yeah.
yeah, but imagine now if you're able to like copy something, or if you look around and you say, hey, I want to copy this can of soda and
Mm,
paste it on this desk, and now this desk kind of transforms. But I still don't like, and the thing that requires time there is just overall like, okay, what is the game? You have a really cool mechanic. What's
mm.
the narrative? What's the
Yeah, it
game?
would have to be a
This.
puzzle game of some sort, but then how do you, because puzzles work because they have restrictions, but if you let a player copy and paste anything in a room, then it's the restriction is gone pretty much. So
Yep.
yeah, that would be an interesting idea to explore though. It's definitely an interesting concept there. Okay, okay. I like that.
Yeah.
Um Right. So, well, I guess it's time for some parting words now. Thank you so much for wanting to come to the show, Kevin. I appreciate you reaching out. And it sounds like you've got a lot of passion and such. Where can other people find you? And if they do, what is the best way to support you?
Probably. So I'm on. We have our Fiveamp company accounts. We have them
Mm-hmm.
on our socials, but
Mm-hmm.
essentially, like just searching anywhere for Fiveamp.
Mm-hmm.
We do have a NIMRODS account, so we're really pushing the game, and we post in our NIMRODS Steam discussions as well as our Discord. So just overall, the NIMRODS community in Steam and getting more wish lists would be very important for us.
Perfect. And of course, I'll put all of these links in the description of the episode so people can come and check you out and see what you guys do. But yeah, other than that, Kevin, really thank you so much for wanting to come to the show. I wish you all the best with Nimrods and with any future projects that you may do with Fiveamp.
So, well, thank you so much, Anthony. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, folks, and that's a wrap on another episode of the Indie Diaries podcast. And this was a great one with Kevin. Thank you for reaching out to and wanting to be on the show. And this is a reminder, actually, that if you guys are indie game developers, you can reach out by going on my Twitter bio or finding my link tree, or just going to the website to theindiediaries.com, and you can send me an email because I'm always open to finding new slots for indie game developers from all around the world. And usually I say yes. So if you are an indie game developer, a solo the developer with a small team, wants a little bit more of exposure, please reach out and I will be happy to find a spot for you. Listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show. You can find it on all the major podcasting platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it. And of course, you can find it on YouTube as well, where I publish I regularly publish now gaming videos, be it me playing with my Discord community or just me playing through some indie games that may or may not have appeared on the show or may not appear in the future. But other than that, please feel free to go to theindiediaries.com to join the Discord server or find other ways in which you can support me, including Patreon and Coffee. And please feel free to send me any kind of feedback that you want to reach out on social media. I'm always happy to just have a chat. But other than that, I guess I will see you on the next episode of the Indie Diaries, which is actually going to be Indie Diary number 50. That is a big number, and I can't wait to show you who the guest is going to be. So yeah, I'll speak to you next time.